what should have been a vacation of a lifetime with friends. 24 hours later, her family receives a phone call that changes everything. Their daughter, their sister, their light is coming home in a body bag. This is a story of Shanqueilla Robinson, a 25-year-old entrepreneur whose trip to Cabo Mexico turned deadly.
Okay.
Quilla, can you at least fight back?
No. Why she not coming?
At least something. At least fight back, something.
Get up, bro! Get up! I'm tired of shit.
The FBI has released its first findings on a complicated, mysterious death involving a Charlotte woman who died while on a trip to Mexico back in 2022. WBTV was the first to break this story to you back then. We're talking about Shanqueilla Robinson. She, along with several others, thought to be friends, now known as the Cabo Six, vacationed in Cabo San Lucas back in October of 2022. Shanquella died while on the trip, but her death has been a mystery ever since. Soon after, video surfaced online showing what is believed to be Shanquella and one of her friends fighting inside their hotel room. The group said Shanquella died of alcohol poisoning, but an autopsy reveals she died of neck and spinal cord injuries.
6 friends returned home with a story about alcohol poisoning. But when the autopsy results came back, that story crumbled completely. What really happened in that luxury villa? And why? 2 years later, is no one behind bars? Stay tuned as we reveal everything about this case. Drop a comment and let me know what you think about this story. Welcome to our channel. Please like this video, share and subscribe to this channel to help raise awareness and spread caution. Let's begin. The evidence is disturbing. The video footage is shocking. The lack of justice is infuriating. But most heartbreaking of all is a mother who still fights every single day for answers about what happened to her daughter in those final moments. Shanqueilla Robinson was living her dream. At just 25 years old, she had built something remarkable, a successful women's fashion line that showcased her entrepreneurial spirit and creative vision. Based in Charlotte, North Carolina, she worked as a hairstylist while growing her business, building a loyal client base who loved not just her skill, but her infectious personality. Her social media presence reflected a young woman who embraced life fully. Photos showed her styling hair, promoting her fashion line, and spending time with family and friends. She was close to her parents, particularly her mother, Salamandra Robinson, who would become the driving force behind seeking justice for her daughter. The group that invited Shanqueilla to Cabo weren't her closest friends. They were acquaintances from her college days at Winston-Salem State University. These relationships had continued over the years, but they weren't the tight-knit bonds you might expect for such an expensive international trip. When the invitation came for a luxury vacation in Cabo Mexico, Shanqueilla was excited. The trip was scheduled for late October 2022, promising warm weather, beautiful beaches, and a much-needed break from her busy schedule. She shared her excitement on social media, posting about the upcoming adventure. The group consisted of 6 people plus Shanqueilla, what would later become known as the Cabo Six. They had rented a luxury villa in San Jose del Cabo, an upscale resort area known for its pristine beaches and high-end accommodations. Everything seemed perfectly planned for an unforgettable getaway. In her final conversations with her mother before leaving Charlotte, Shanqueilla was upbeat and looking forward to the trip. She promised to stay in touch and share photos from their Mexican adventure. Neither she nor her family had any indication that this goodbye would be their last. The contrast between Shanquella's excitement and what would unfold in Mexico creates a tragedy that haunts everyone who learns her story. Here was a young woman with everything to live for, embarking on what should have been a celebration of friendship and success. October 28, 2022. 7 friends board flights bound for Los Cabos, Mexico. The destination was everything they had hoped for: luxury villa with stunning ocean views, perfect weather, and all the amenities needed for an incredible vacation. San Jose del Cabo offered the perfect backdrop for their getaway. The resort town caters to upscale travelers with beautiful beaches, world-class restaurants, and luxury accommodations. The villa they had rented was spacious enough for the entire group, with multiple bedrooms, common areas for socializing, and that coveted Mexican vacation atmosphere. The first day appeared to go smoothly. The group settled into their accommodations, explored the area, and began what everyone expected would be several days of relaxation and fun. Social media posts from that first day showed the typical vacation content: beautiful views, group photos, and excitement of being in paradise. But October 29th, 2022 would become a date forever etched in tragedy. According to the timeline established by Mexican authorities, everything changed that afternoon around 3 p.m. Shanqueilla Robinson was found unconscious in the living room of the villa. The Mexican autopsy report would later reveal that only 15 minutes passed between the injury that caused her death and when she actually died. 15 minutes. In those crucial moments, instead of getting immediate medical attention, instead of calling for help, instead of doing everything possible to save their friend's life, the group's actions remain a source of controversy and investigation. What's the most beautiful vacation destination you've ever been to? Let me know in the comments, because this story shows how quickly paradise can turn into a nightmare when the people you trust most fail you in your darkest moment. The speed of Shanquella's death raises immediate questions. According to medical experts, the type of injury she sustained, a severe spinal cord injury resulting in a broken neck, would have been immediately apparent to anyone present. This wasn't a gradual decline that could be mistaken for illness or intoxication. Yet somehow, the group that was with her in those final moments would construct an entirely different narrative about what happened. The story they told authorities, the story they told her family, and the story they maintained for weeks afterward had nothing to do with the physical trauma that actually killed Shanquella Robinson. The luxury villa that should have been filled with laughter and friendship became a crime scene. Paradise had turned deadly, and the people who should have been Shanquella's protectors became the primary suspects in her death. Within hours of Shanquella Robinson's death, a carefully constructed story began to emerge. The 6 friends who had been with her in those final moments presented a united front with their explanation: alcohol poisoning. This narrative wasn't just told to Mexican authorities. It was a story they immediately shared with Shanquella's family back in Charlotte. When her mother, Salamandra Robinson, received that devastating phone call, she was told her daughter had consumed too much alcohol and died as a result. For a family suddenly thrust into unimaginable grief, the story initially seemed plausible. Vacation deaths from alcohol poisoning, while tragic, do occur. The shock of losing their daughter so suddenly left the Robinson family reeling, focused more on bringing Shanquella home than questioning the details of what happened. But even in those early phone calls, something felt wrong to Salamandra Robinson. The friend's explanation seemed rehearsed, lacking the emotion and confusion you expect from people who had just witnessed their friend's sudden death. Their accounts were remarkably consistent, as if they had all agreed on exactly what to say. The friends described a night of drinking that got out of hand. They claimed Shanquella had consumed far more alcohol than she could handle, became violently ill, and died before they could get her medical attention. It was a tragedy, they insisted, but an accident, the result of poor judgment during a vacation where everyone was drinking heavily. However, inconsistencies began emerging almost immediately. Details about the timeline didn't match. The friends' descriptions of Shanquella's condition before her death varied from call to call. Most troubling to her family was how quickly the group seemed to move past the tragedy and focus on their own departure from Mexico. While the Robinson family was making arrangements to bring their daughter's body home, the 6 friends were busy booking flights back to the United States. They showed little interest in staying to assist with any investigation or provide detailed statements to Mexican authorities. The speed with which they left the country would later become a significant obstacle to any meaningful investigation. By the time serious questions arose about their version of events, all 6 were back on U.S. soil, protected by international jurisdiction complications that would plague the case for years to come. November 2022 brought revelations that completely demolished the alcohol poisoning narrative. The Mexican autopsy report arrived, and its findings were devastating, not just for the Robinson family, but for the credibility of everyone who had been in that villa. The official cause of death was listed as severe spinal cord injury and atlas luxation. In simpler terms, Shanquella Robinson had died from a broken neck. The atlas luxation specifically refers to a dislocation of the first vertebra, a catastrophic injury that occurs from extreme trauma to the head and neck area. Nowhere in the autopsy report was there any mention of alcohol poisoning. In fact, there was no indication that alcohol played any role in her death whatsoever. The medical evidence painted a picture of violent physical trauma, not accidental overconsumption of alcohol. For the Robinson family, this news was both devastating and infuriating. Not only had they lost their daughter to violence, but the people who witnessed that violence had lied to them about how she died. The grief of loss was now compounded by the betrayal of deception. But the autopsy report was just the beginning. In November 2022, a video began circulating on social media that would shock the nation and provide visual evidence of what really happened in that Cabo villa. The video, allegedly recorded by one of the friends present, shows Shanqueilla Robinson being violently attacked. According to multiple sources who have seen the footage, it shows her being physically assaulted while she was naked and defenseless. Most disturbing is not just the violence being inflicted, but the reaction of the other friends present. Instead of intervening to protect Shanquella, the video reportedly shows them recording the attack and, in some cases, encouraging it. Voices can allegedly be heard in the background, but none calling for the violence to stop or attempting to help their supposed friend.
Okay.
Quilla, can you at least fight back?
No. Why she not coming?
At least something. At least fight back, something.
Get up, bro! Get up! I'm tired of shit!
The existence of this video raises profound questions about premeditation and intent. Why was someone recording? Why did no one intervene? And most importantly, how does this level of violence result in the broken neck that killed Shanqueilla Robinson? When the video went viral on social media platforms, public outrage was immediate and intense. The hashtag Justice for Shanquella began trending as people demanded accountability for what appeared to be a clear case of assault resulting in death. The contrast between the video evidence and the alcohol poisoning story wasn't just inconsistent. It was a complete fabrication. The 6 friends hadn't just failed to help Shanquella, according to video evidence. They had actively participated in or encouraged the violence that killed her. With clear video evidence and autopsy results contradicting the friend's story, many expected swift justice. Instead, what followed was a frustrating series of jurisdictional complications, investigative failures, and ultimately, a complete lack of accountability. Mexican authorities were the first to respond to the new evidence. They reopened the case and began investigating Shanquella's death as femicide, a gender-based violence crime that carries serious penalties under Mexican law. This classification acknowledged that her death wasn't accidental, but the result of intentional violence. However, the investigation faced immediate obstacles. The 6 suspects were all back in the United States, beyond the immediate reach of Mexican law enforcement. Extradition processes are complex and time-consuming, requiring cooperation between multiple government agencies and legal systems. The FBI became involved, as they typically do in cases involving American citizens who die under suspicious circumstances abroad. The family hoped that federal involvement would bring the resources and expertise needed to hold the perpetrators accountable. But in April 2023, nearly 6 months after the video evidence emerged, federal prosecutors delivered devastating news to the Robinson family. They announced they would not be filing charges against any of the 6 friends, citing insufficient evidence to secure convictions. This decision was met with widespread disbelief and outrage. How could video evidence of an assault that resulted in death be considered insufficient for prosecution? The prosecutor's explanation focused on the challenges of proving intent and the complications of international jurisdiction. The Cabo Six, as they became known in media coverage, remained free, despite public identification, despite video evidence. Despite autopsy results that contradicted their story, none faced criminal charges for their role in Shanqueilla Robinson's death. The jurisdictional complications were real and significant. Mexico wanted to prosecute the case as femicide, but couldn't easily access the suspects. The United States had the suspects but claimed insufficient evidence for federal charges. This gap between legal systems created a situation where justice fell through cracks. For the Robinson family, the lack of criminal charges felt like a second tragedy. Not only had they lost their daughter to violence, but the system designed to protect victims and prosecute criminals had failed them completely. The people responsible for Shanquella's death were walking free, continuing their lives while her family struggled with grief and the absence of justice. The FBI's decision not to prosecute raised questions about the federal government's commitment to protecting American citizens abroad and holding perpetrators accountable for violent crimes. Faced with a criminal justice system that failed them, the Robinson family made a decision that would define their path forward. If the government wouldn't hold these 6 people accountable, they would seek justice through civil courts. October 2024 marked the 2nd anniversary of Shanqueilla Robinson's death. Rather than letting this tragic milestone pass quietly, her family chose this date to file a comprehensive wrongful death lawsuit that would bring their fight for accountability into a new arena. The lawsuit targets not just the 6 friends who were present when Shanquella died, but also federal agencies they believe failed to properly investigate her death. Named as defendants are the Cabo Six, the FBI, and the Department of State, creating a legal challenge that spans both individual accountability and governmental responsibility. The family is seeking damages exceeding $25,000 from each of the friends involved, though the lawsuit makes clear that money isn't their primary motivation. They want acknowledgement of wrongdoing, they want accountability, and they want to ensure that what happened to their daughter doesn't happen to anyone else. The allegations in the civil lawsuit are comprehensive and damning. They include battery, negligence, civil conspiracy, and wrongful death, charges that paint a picture of coordinated violence and subsequent cover-up. The lawsuit alleges that the friends didn't just fail to protect Shanquella, but actively participated in actions that led to her death. Perhaps most significantly, the lawsuit challenges a federal agency's handling of the case. The family alleges that both the FBI and Department of State failed to conduct thorough investigations, failed to pursue available evidence, and ultimately failed to seek justice for an American citizen killed abroad. This approach represents a new strategy in the fight for justice. While criminal courts require proof beyond a reasonable doubt, civil courts operate on a lower standard, preponderance of evidence. This means the family doesn't need to prove guilt with absolute certainty, only that it's more likely than not that the defendants are responsible for Shanquella's death. The timing of the lawsuit also serves as a powerful reminder that this case isn't forgotten. 2 years after Shanquella's death, her family continues to fight, continues to seek answers, and continues to demand accountability from everyone they believe played a role in the tragedy. Civil lawsuits can't put anyone in prison, but they can provide financial accountability and, perhaps more importantly, force defendants to answer questions under oath. Discovery processes in civil cases can uncover evidence that criminal investigations missed or ignored. For the Robinson family, this lawsuit represents hope that someone will finally be held accountable for Shanquella's death, hope that the full truth will emerge, and hope that their daughter's death will have meaning in preventing future tragedies. The case is ongoing, with all parties still engaged in the legal process that could finally provide the answers and accountability the family has sought for more than 2 years. The death of Shanqueilla Robinson forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about friendship, loyalty, and the systems we trust to protect us. Her story isn't just about one tragic incident in Mexico. It's about broader patterns of violence, betrayal, and institutional failure that affect countless families. The first lesson is perhaps the most personal. Choose your travel companions carefully. The people you vacation with, particularly in foreign countries, become your support system in emergencies. They're the ones who will make decisions about your safety, who will call for help if needed, and who will advocate for you if something goes wrong. Shanquella trusted her college acquaintances with her life, and that trust was not just misplaced, but actively betrayed. This case also highlights the reality of violence against women, particularly in situations where victims are vulnerable. The video evidence suggests that Shanquella was attacked while naked and defenseless, a position of ultimate vulnerability. The fact that multiple people witness this violence without intervening speaks to disturbing social dynamics where bystanders become complicit in abuse. The group dynamics displayed in that Cabo villa reveal how toxic friendships can escalate into violence. Instead of the mutual support and protection you expect from friends, this group created an environment where violence was not just tolerated, but apparently encouraged and recorded. The fact that someone thought to film the assault rather than stop, it shows a level of callousness that's difficult to comprehend. International jurisdiction complications expose critical gaps in our justice system. When Americans are killed abroad, the path to accountability becomes immediately more complex. Mexico wanted to prosecute, but couldn't easily access the suspects. The United States had jurisdiction over its citizens, but claimed insufficient evidence. This gap allowed potential criminals to escape consequences simply because the crime occurred across borders. The power of social media and modern justice movements cannot be understated. When traditional law enforcement failed to act, public pressure through platforms like Twitter and TikTok kept Shanquella's story alive. The viral video evidence, while disturbing, forced authorities to acknowledge facts they might otherwise have ignored. Social media became both the source of evidence and the platform for demanding justice. Family advocacy proved crucial in keeping cases alive when institutions fail. Shanqueilla Robinson's refusal to accept the lies about her daughter's death, her persistent demands for investigation, and her decision to pursue civil litigation when criminal justice failed, all demonstrate how families must sometimes become their own advocates for justice. The case reveals how systems can fail at multiple levels. Mexican authorities, U.S. federal prosecutors, and law enforcement agencies all had opportunities to seek justice for Shanqueilla Robinson. Each found reasons not to act.
On October 29th, on November 11th, our Brandon Hamilton sat down with both of Robinson's parents. They say her friends told them that Shanquella died of alcohol poisoning, but they didn't believe that.
We received the autopsy report on Thursday, and it said that her neck had been broke and she had a back spinal cord was cracked. So that took it to a whole nother level.
5 days later, the FBI confirmed with WBTV a viral video was referred to them. It is graphic and shows it.
This case reminds us that behind every true crime story is a real person whose life had value and meaning. Shanqueilla Robinson wasn't just a victim. She was a daughter, an entrepreneur, a young woman with dreams and goals who deserved protection from the people she trusted. Her death also highlights how violence against black women is often minimized or ignored by institutions. The lack of urgency in investigating her death, the quick acceptance of obviously false explanations, and the ultimate failure to prosecute despite clear evidence all reflect broader patterns of discrimination in how cases involving black victims are handled. This case is still ongoing, and Shanquella's family continues their fight for justice. What do you think should happen next? Should there be arrests? Should the federal government reopen the criminal investigation? Share your thoughts below. And don't forget to subscribe for more true crime cases where we examine not just what happened, but why justice sometimes fails and how families refuse to give up hope. 2 years have passed since Shanqueilla Robinson boarded that plane to Cabo, excited about a vacation with friends. She was 25 years old, building a business, living her dreams, and looking forward to creating memories that would last a lifetime. Instead, her family had to bring her home in a body bag, victims of lies that took months to unravel. The people who should have protected her betrayed her in the worst possible way. The systems designed to deliver justice failed her completely. But Shanquella's story isn't over. Her mother continues to fight. Her family refuses to let her death be forgotten. The civil lawsuit represents a new chapter in seeking accountability for those responsible for her death. This case matters because it exposes how quickly paradise can become hell when the people you trust most fail you. It matters because it shows how institutional failures can compound personal tragedies. And it matters because it demonstrates that some families will never stop fighting for justice, no matter how many obstacles they face. Remember Shanqueilla Robinson's name. Remember her story. And remember that true justice isn't just about punishment. It's about acknowledgement, accountability, and ensuring that no other family has to endure what the Robinsons have faced. Next week, we'll be covering another case where social media evidence changed everything. The murder case that was solved by a TikTok video. Make sure you're subscribed and hit that notification bell so you don't miss it. Until then, stay safe. And remember, the people closest to you should be your protectors, not your predators.